Welcome to the Soul Deep Podcast with Jessica Janty. Join me as we dive deep into raw, real, in-depth conversations about life, love, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, what it is we're really here for, and anything in between. I want this to feel like a safe space for anyone on a spiritual journey, trying to find answers in your truth by having open heart and open-minded conversations. And my hope for you as a listener is that you feel this is a safe space here, a place to hear things from a different perspective that may challenge you and your thinking in the best way possible, allowing you to give grace to how you've been raised or what you've been taught or told to believe. And perhaps you find your truth as I search for mine on this journey we call life. So grab your favorite drink, cozy on up to your couch or wherever you listen from, and join me for these soul deep conversations. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I have with me Ariel. Ariel and I have known each other, gosh, it's probably been about 2.5 years.
Yeah, 2.5 for sure.
Yeah, so we met through a mentor that we have, and we've actually got to meet in person a couple times now, but mostly it's been online relationships. So I'm really excited to have her here with us today. So before we get too far into anything, I love just to open us up with some breath, just to ground us into our space here. So if you feel comfortable closing down your eyes, for those of you at home listening, if you feel comfortable closing down your eyes, obviously if you're driving, keep your eyes open. All right, so if we want to just take some slow, easy breaths in through our nose and out through our mouth, and just keeping that breath going as fast or as slow as you'd like it to go. Just this inhale and exhale, allowing our body to land here in this space, letting go of anything from earlier today, letting go of any to-do lists, anything you need to do later. We are often so good at being multitaskers, doing all the things at one time and wearing a badge of honor because we can do all the things. And sometimes it is more productive, or often it is more productive, just to take the power of the pause, to do one thing at a time, to focus on one thing, and sometimes just focusing on our breath, focusing on the stillness and the peace that you can feel inside of just being still. And for those of you that are feeling like sitting still and just breathing feels hard, just knowing that it's something that we have to adjust to. We're so used to going and doing and being busy, and our bodies are so used to the chaos that we create of all the tasks, of all the things, the places to go, the people to see, the things to do. And so just sitting and being still with our body sometimes feels unsafe. So creating these practices where we can just take a few moments a day to build your capacity for stillness, for silence, for peace, to allow your body know that it's safe to be still, it's safe to be quiet. That coming home to our body. And so just taking a few more breaths here. Let's just take one more big, deep inhale together. And a big, audible exhale. Just letting it go. Thank you for joining me in that. Such a good place to start.
Yeah, it's always good to take that pause. I love it.
Yes. Well, thank you for being here with me again, like I said. And I don't have a fun, cute little mug today, but you, I know, have a cute, cute mug. So tell us about your little mug here.
This is my little boo mug. It's from David's Tea. The little ghosts show up when you put in a hot beverage. And in my household, we are, I like to refer to us as witchy woo-woos. We are Halloween folk year round. And so my kids, My husband, myself, we all love Halloween, and you can imagine our house is decked out to the nines during October. But yeah, this is my little boo mug, and I just love it because they're so cute. Look
I
at
love
them.
it. I do. I love it too. It's so cute. Yes.
Yeah, but I've got um ashwagandha chai tea in here. So like the spices really open up the heart chakra center. Ashwagandha, for those that don't know, is a really calming herb to have in your day-to-day diet for regulating your adrenal system. And so this is kind of like my daily little support for my adrenal system every day. And it's just really nourishing to the soul to have that nice hot cup of tea. So I
Yes.
love it.
Mm, I love that. And I'm a warm beverage drinker, no matter if it's cold or warm out. I just feel like it's so soothing to the soul.
Yeah, I do love a
Ah,
good cup of tea.
yeah.
I thrived when I was in Scotland and England. It was tea all day, every day.
I honestly didn't know you were there. I feel like I know a lot of your story, but I don't know that part. So, whew, I feel like we got a lot to get into because you got a story. So, tell us, introduce yourself, tell us about yourself. Yeah, whatever you want to share.
Yeah. So most of your viewership probably doesn't know me. My name is Ariel Balfour or Summers, depending on where you find me. It's my maiden name is Summers. But Ariel Balfour is my handle on Instagram. And I'm an emotional wellness mentor and reclamation warrior. And so a lot of people ask what that means. But for me, what this means is I went through hell and back, and I didn't have a guide. I didn't have a plan, a blueprint, anything like that to make it out of the world of mental health illness into the world of clarity and success. I had to learn how to reclaim my truth, reclaim my life, reclaim my power, really, in a world that told me I couldn't and I wouldn't be able to. And so I had to literally don myself with armor in a metaphorical, emotional sense. And I had to go to battle and then to war to figure out a way to get to the other side. And this is why my hashtag is always the Viking Queen. I use a lot of Norse mythology in my work, as well as it just speaks to my soul. My soul has always been one of a warrior. And those Viking drums speak deeply to that part of my soul. And a lot of my story revolved around actual physical fighting. So I was a semi-pro MMA fighter for most of my life. I started in martial arts very young, and I've always had a natural affinity for it. It came very natural to me to be able to fight and to be able to move and to be able to respond to anybody who I was in a ring with. So it was made sense that my natural affinity for fighting would also transfer over into the emotional battle I had to go through to get myself off medications, to find out where my power was, and to reclaim that for myself. And so I now teach other people how to reclaim their power, how to reclaim their truth, and therefore reclaim their lives, because we live in a society that loves to pigeonhole people and keep them sick and keep them stuck in their negative limiting beliefs. And I believe that there's a better way.
Yeah. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's so cool. Wow. I love the way you explain that so well. So, how did you get into MMA fighting? Like, did you grow up as a kid? Like, did your parents put you in fighting school? I don't know what you'd call it, training.
Yeah, well, my brother being the boy in the family, he was always like, he's the boy. He was supposed to be the rough and tumbly one, loved WWE, all of these things. And I'm sure my parents had aspirations for him to be the one to do that, but he was really the drama queen in terms of he really loved theater, he loved acting, things like that. Me, I have been a little spitfire since the day I came out of the womb. My mom says I came out ready to fight anything and everything in my pathway. The warrior vibe has been strong since day one. Um, and really, as a child who suffered from ADHD and getting diagnosed with many, many different mental health disorders very young, um, it really became my safe haven in a way for me to move energy out of my body. Now, this was back in a time when the understandings of somatic work and physically moving energy out of your body wasn't well spoken about. But for me, I naturally was drawn to that style of somatic release because for me, I couldn't sit still. I couldn't get silent with my breath. I couldn't get silent with the meditation. But for me, hitting a heavy bag, hitting kick shields with somebody, I could lose myself in the rhythm of the breaths, in the rhythm of the punches, in the rhythm of the kicks, and I could work through things and reclaim my power in those moments. And so my parents, they really didn't have a lot of money to put me into sports, and so a lot of it was self-taught, a lot of it was a passion and a drive. And then as a young adult, I really, yes, I was in and out of martial arts my whole life, but like when as a young adult, I ended up really fighting physically, mentally, emotionally to get into a specific gym in my area that was male oriented only. And as I did that, I showed up daily begging, pleading to get into this gym, being turned away day after day until I eventually was given the opportunity to prove myself. Now, this was probably an egotistical, misogynistic way to put me in my place, but my affinity for what I wanted and my dedication and resiliency and tenacity got me the position in the gym. And so from there, I really built my self brand around being an MMA fighter. I was referred to as Ariel the Assassin because you would never see me coming. I'm like a little torpedo. And really, I just kind of fell into it there. And it took me many, many years of fighting. And like, I have so many medals and so many belts that I can't even display them. Like, there's too many. I need a whole room. And, they were all well and good, but every time I won a medal, I felt empty after. And that was when I kind of started to wake up to the calling that there was a reason that fighting was leaving me empty at the end of the day, is that I was moving the energy out of my body, but I wasn't replacing it with the healing and the nourishment that my soul needed. And so it was being in martial arts my entire life, it actually was a band-aid, and I didn't know that until I got into this work and really had to deep dive into this side of healing. And I mean, my story is so involved on so many different levels, like it's crazy, but this is how martial arts kind of played its big tie into my life and actually has led to a program being released in 2025 called Mindful Strikes, where we infuse kickboxing with trauma-informed release. And so it's going to be probably one of my signature programs because this is how I survived through all the trauma I experienced.
I love that because I don't think, and like you said, back when you started doing this work or the MMA fighting, like we didn't know that it was a somatic release. We didn't know the importance that moving our body was on our healing. And yes, you always talked about exercise, but I think that even came a little later. Like I don't think it was until real recent that we've really realized how healing that is for the body, because we're using our breath as we are exercising more. That exhale that is so releasing. That's why breath work is so important, because you're really using that exhale to release just anything that's stuck in the body. So you're getting physically active in fighting, in dance, in all these different things that we've now learned are so healing to the body because it helps release all of this stuff that we are holding on to. So yeah, that was so beautiful. I love that. So how did you go from MMA fighting to, like, how did you find this work that you're talking about now?
Oh, well, it wasn't a straight transitional line, actually. I was still in MMA quite heavily when I started my healing journey. When I was 21, my liver began to shut down due to being shoved on a ton of medication for bipolar. Um, and so, give you a little background story on that. The women in my family all suffer from bipolar, or back in the day, it was referred to as manic depression. But basically, I was diagnosed with this really, when I was diagnosed with ADHD, they kind of had an inkling. When I was 13, they gave a confirmed diagnosis. And it was like watching my parents look at me like a ticking time bomb. And the reason being is that every female on my father's side who had this illness ended up committing suicide. And one way or the other, it was an end to their story. And so as soon as I got this diagnosis, I could see it in their eyes. Despite the words never being actually spoken, I could feel their energy as they looked at me as a ticking time bomb. So every depressive episode was met with 911 emergency, right? And I wasn't allowed to feel my emotions. So of course it was shove me into a doctor, get me on medication, numb, 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 numb. And really at the end of the day, that did more harm than good. And so fast forward to when I was 21, my liver was starting to shut down because I was on so much medication and it wasn't helping. I kept fighting to try and get through it, but like I would go home and it would just feel like so much and so heavy. And I literally lived in the gym because it was the only way to feel like I had control over my life. And so I went off medication because when my liver began to shut down, they're like, we're going to have to take you off. Your future holds you living in a mental institution, get your affairs in order. This is kind of, where it really peaks for you. And I said, that is a death sentence without giving me a death sentence. And I said, not happening. That's not my story. That's not who I am. And I basically told the psychologist and the psychiatrist to hold my beer, watch me. And they said, we'll see you in 3 to 6 months. And thus started my own healing journey, starting with a naturopath, because I had no idea what I was doing. It had never been done, like ever. You've never heard of it successfully being done. People who go off medication inevitably always have a relapse, right? And so I go to the naturopath. We did this properly, slowly weaning me off medication, slowly adding in occupational behavioral tactics, adding in proper diet, mindfulness, all of it step by step by step by step. And then from there, it opened up a world of other potential modalities. And so I kind of went on this self-healing journey, self-led. I did a lot of trade, teaching people how to do martial arts in order to get into their spaces. Because a female teacher wasn't very well heard of at that point in time. And so I did this journey. And all the while, everybody's looking, holding their breath, waiting for me to fail, waiting for me to have that manic break or that psychosis. And I just kept trucking along. I'm not doing it. And I, instead of hiding away from my emotions, learned to sit down and have a beautiful cup of tea with them and allow them to come out and observe them with neutrality, right? Having a depressive moment didn't make me bipolar. Having a excited moment where I'm like bouncing off the walls because there's so much happening did not make me bipolar. That's just me. And it was okay to view it in neutrality. And so as I went on this healing journey, my career in MMA went kind of sideways. I dislocated my knees, needed double reconstruction surgery, which allowed me to really deep dive into some athletic depression, which then allowed me the opportunity to deep dive into my healing journey even further. Because when I took away my Band-Aid, what was left was nothing but this oozing wound that I had no choice but to focus on. And so that's kind of how I went down this pathway, is that I started really doing my own healing journey. I wasn't helping other people, but I always had this pull to be of service. I always want to be of service to people. And so like I started off as a dog trainer, and then I became a doula. And then, like by the time I started to really understand mental health, I became a paramedic. And I got to see firsthand the absolute garbage system that Canada has for mental health, and how it is now created an addictions pandemic, how it's created an anxiety pandemic with children. Like, no child should have anxiety. Are you kidding me? And so I started to see where our gaps in our society were beginning, especially here in Canada. And I was like, no, this is enough. And then the true pandemic hit.
Mm.
And I was like, just having my first baby. And I was like, no, we're not doing this anymore. And then I really deep dove into a lot of neurosomatic work. I became a REST certified coach, which is rapid reprogramming emotional stress technique. And what I found with that technique, it took everything I had been working towards and solidified my understanding of where my servitude needed to go. Because how many times did I sit in a therapist's office going, this is how I'm feeling, blah, 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 and them going, well, how do you feel about that? Really offering no objective, then offering no opinions and offering no solutions, leaving me more frustrated, more shut down, more afraid to express myself. Because at the end of the day, all they're trained to do is to teach people how to become aware. But what do you do with somebody who is so vastly aware? And so I decided to take everything I had been through and start to lead the way, because I have been through the fire. And so this is now what lights my soul up, because when somebody comes to me and they're like, I feel like I'm suffocating in my day-to-day life, I'm like, yeah, girlfriend, let's talk about that. Let's get your breath back, because it's okay to feel this way. Becoming a parent really solidified as well that, like, I had trauma that I hadn't even dove into yet, because kids are like the number one thing that'll push your buttons and be like, oh, here's the trauma you forgot you didn't have. Like, beep, 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 right? And so, like, MMA didn't lead me down this way. It was just one of the catalyst points that opened me up to a new world. And it really was that athletic depression when I dislocated both my legs. And I went back to MMA after and crushed it, I might add, despite being told I wouldn't be able to walk. But I was like, it was in that moment of like, I don't have my Band-Aid. I don't have my dissociation allowed. So what do I have to do? I'm literally stuck in a bed, can't walk anywhere, can't even run away from my emotions. Like, what are we gonna do? And so I had to really deep dive at that point. And it's been a wild ride. It's been 20 years of insanity and growth and happiness and change. And like, I look back on that girl that was laying in bed with her legs busted, and I go, I don't even know that person anymore. I really don't. So yeah, it's a convoluted story, but it's a beautiful one, and I think everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's so beautiful because I think you brush past the fact that you had no choice but just to do it because you were laying in a bed. But you could very well have numbed out. You could have very well just turned to TV or books or something else. Like, you chose the path of saying, I'm going to do this work. I'm going to try to figure it out because I want better for myself. So I think that's a really huge point to,
You know what? And there was a time at the beginning that I did actually numb out for the first couple of months because I didn't know what was happening in my brain. But it is one of those stories of, like, again, this is why I call myself the Reclamation Warrior, because it was like the moment where I remember laying in bed and I'm doing my therapy on my legs, and the pain is so intense that I start to get sad that I'm never going to walk again. To which point I like look down at my bicep, and my bicep's still quite muscular at this point, and I'm like, fuck it, I'll roll over onto my tummy and I'm going to do some push-ups. And it was in that moment that I reclaimed my power. And then from there started the catalyst of, like, I do have a choice. I always have a choice. Is it going to be an easy choice? No, it's not easy to roll over when both your legs are completely almost dead. But I had a choice. I got weights and I started doing all sorts of stuff in bed with my weights, and like, I made a choice every single day. Right. And you're right. And I do brush past that. And I think that's its own trauma, is that I've learned not to let my ego step in the way of, like, I did the things, but like, I did do the things. And it is hard in the moment of that depression to make that hard choice to put yourself first to put your dreams and ambitions first, to believe in yourself when the last thing you have is belief in yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why I wanted to highlight it too, so that if there's somebody listening, they could be like, well, I don't know that I could do that. She could do that, but I can't do that. But it's to let you know that like we are just humans like everybody else. There is nothing different or more special than in us than is in you. Like if you feel like there's something that you need inside of you, like you need a change, you are like, I know I'm made for more, like then do it. You just have, it's just that choice. It's like that snap of a finger choice. Like this can be different. It can be different.
Well, if I may,
yeah.
One of the biggest things that I sit and I teach my kids every single day, you always have a choice. Both choices are hard. Choose your heart.
Yes.
So we have a phrase and we have it written on their bathroom window. It says, choose your heart. What heart are you going to choose? You can choose to fight me on whatever it is that you're choosing to fight me on because you're a toddler.
Yeah.
Or you can choose to do the thing and then like allow yourself to reclaim your power in that. Yeah. I have very strong-willed children, go figure. Yeah. So it is always a power struggle, but we've learned to harness that power in a positive light of like, you get to choose. Yeah. Right. And I think it's understanding, like, I know I read it in books many, many years ago. It's all a decision. And I thought it was a bunch of crap. So if you're listening to this, you guys, and you're like, yeah, they always say it's a decision. Honestly, I thought it was garbage. I ignored it for so long, but it really honestly is a moment in your brain where you decide enough is enough. Yeah. Right? If you're overweight, it's that moment that you decide to put down the cheeseburgers and grab a salad. It is those moments that you choose to put the alcoholic beverage down and grab water instead. It is those moments that you decide, I'm going to roll over in bed despite the pain and do 10 push-ups, which are going to feel like death because it's better than nothing. Right? It is those moments of deciding, and confidence and motivation don't just come. Everybody says, I'll wait till I feel more confident, or I'll wait till I have motivation. But the problem with that is that they come as a byproduct of the action that you take. Yeah. So you must do the action first, repeat it over and over and over again to get the results, which then leads to the motivation and the confidence. Everybody has it backwards. Yeah. You must do the action first and repeat it. Yes. In order for you to get the confidence and the motivation to continue. Every day I rolled over in bed to do push-ups was torture. Yeah. It was torture until it wasn't. Right? And that's the difference, is it really is a decision. Am I going to be stronger than my strongest excuse not to? Yeah. Are you? Yeah.
Oof, that was good. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I pull on in my journals all the time. Like, pain is merely weakness leaving the body. Right. Yeah. And in those moments, that's a martial arts and a military term. Yeah. Being a military family is one I heard a lot. And I didn't truly understand it until that moment of rolling over in the bed of like, okay, I got to do the thing. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you shared a lot. And there's a couple questions I have, but the first one I'm going to ask you. So out of all of this and in your story, what do you feel is your soul purpose? Like, what's your soul's purpose here at this time? Because obviously it can change, But...
Yeah. My sole purpose is to lead and to motivate. And so I put it this way. I always think of like Legend of Zelda. It's a video game. You're in one of those dark cavernous labyrinths, and all you can see is little Zelda's light, and that's all you can see. That's me. And I'm going to walk through this labyrinth. I know the way out, and I'm going to lead with my little light, and whoever is awake along the way can follow me. Right? Put a hand on my shoulder, follow me out. But not everybody's ready to be awake. And so I feel like my soul's purpose is to lead those who are ready but don't have a light. They don't know the direction yet. To be the one that says, hey, follow me, I know the way out. Yeah. And then from there, it creates a ripple effect. And it creates change, right? You change a person, you change a household. You change a household, you change a community. You change a community, you change the fucking world.
Yeah.
That's how that works. So I'm not here to be super famous, although that would be fun, on some level. But I'm not here to do all of that. I'm here to create actual change. And that has always been a story and a whisper within my mind from the time I was little. I'm meant to be here to do big things. Right? Even if I go completely unnoticed the entire time, that is not my mission. My mission is to make the change, to be the light in the dark for those who need it.
Yeah. I love that. Go back to a couple things that you said. So you talked about neurosomatic. And so if you could just briefly touch in case there's anybody listening that is like, I don't know what that means. And then I also want to talk to you about rest. So maybe both of those things, if you can just expand a little bit so that anybody that's listening can understand what it is that you do, maybe just a little bit more.
Neurosomatic and rest. Well, let's combine those two together because they are one and the same. For lack of a better terminology, trying to describe what neurosomatic work in rest is like trying to describe an orgasm to somebody who's never had one. Right? Yeah. Until you experience it, it is something that is different for every person. But the gist of it is that we're doing brain surgery without cutting you open. So we are getting to the base, the root cause of a trigger, right? So neurosomatic essentially is just like creating new neural pathways in your brain, right? Because when you have a trauma that happens, you create a highway in your brain. These highways then get reiterated, aka built further by stories that add into that. So like, let's say as a child, you do something wrong, your parent chastised you, you walk away feeling not good enough. Now you've started the highway for I'm not good enough. And now every story that feeds into that builds that highway, right? What rest does is it goes along the highway to the root of where that story started, and we change it by using somatic work and by creating new neural pathways and building a new highway, right? And so it's for everybody experiencing this, it is so vastly different, but it combines breath work, acupressure, visualization, theta meditation, hypnotherapy, EMDR, and inner child work all in one modality. Right? It is life-changing for me personally. I will never go away from it because it has literally shifted my life, which is why I got certified in it. Neurosomatics is basically just attaching the brain to the body. And as in society, we have learned too well how to detach our brain from our body. So many people are not aware of their own body and where they store emotions that there's a complete disconnect. And so what rest does is it brings that connection back. Breath work brings that connection back, right? It brings you back into your body so you can build the proper pathways in your brain so that when the trigger comes up where somebody makes you not feel good enough, you go, actually, that's your perception. I am good enough. I'm perfect as I am. Thank you. Right? Yeah. And I mean, these pathways that we build are built usually very young, between 0 and 7 is when most of them are built. A lot of the time where most practitioners don't talk about is the past life and past generation. Epigenetics plays a huge role in the stories that we have running in our actual biological makeup. This is why our First Nations have histories of addiction even when it's a new generation. It is a story that has been implanted into their actual biological makeup and the neural pathways in their brain, right? This is why this kind of stuff happens, is because we have these stories that are built far beyond our space and time.
Yeah.
And so rest can get to the base root, either generation, past life. If that's not up your alleyway, if anybody's listening and like, I don't believe in that, you don't have to, right? You don't have to. But the greatest thing about this modality is it works with every religion, every belief system. We're still going to get to the root of the problem, however that looks. And this is why I say there's no one way to describe it, because everybody's experience is so different. So it's just moving trauma out of your body and connecting your brain back to your body and starting a new pathway so that when you feel that hurt, you have a different reaction. Mm-hmm. Because emotions that get repressed get expressed in ways that we don't want.
Yeah. So good. So I'd never heard of this rest. So how did you find it, or how did it find you? Because sometimes those things actually find us. So how did you
found me?
Yeah. How'd you come
Yeah,
about
it found me. Yeah, it found me through somebody that I actually did Juice Plus with, because that was an MLM that I was a part of. And so it just found me through that, and she needed to practice. And I enjoyed it so much that I connected with the actual neuroscientist that created it, and kind of just started to pick her brain. And then she's like, hey, would you like to get certified? And off we went, right? And it was, unfortunately, the company itself has, closed its doors, so there won't be any more certified rest coaches for now. I firmly believe that it will reopen its doors later on, but due to some issues that happen that were outside of their control, the doors had to close. So I feel very blessed that when it crossed my path, I had the opportunity to do something that not very many people did. I think in the entirety of the world, there's probably maybe 10 of us that practice full time.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And so is this in person or just online?
It can be both. It's great. It is a modality because we combine Reiki with it. We can do distance energetic connection. So if anybody's ever gone to a chiropractor and they've like had a muscle test done, right? Like, oh, are you feeling pain in your gut and your arm goes down, right? Things like that. It's the same energetic connection. We're just not in person with each other. And so again, it's really hard to describe, but it is probably one of the most potent ways to get to your root of your issues. And being a rest coach and rest practitioner has opened up so many other doors for me, because now I understand on a deeper level how trauma actually can affect us. Like big T trauma, we all know about that, but it was really understanding the compounded little T trauma, the feeling ignored, abandoned, not good enough, judged. These are big stories that build big pathways in our brain that affect how we operate as adults. And unless we deal with them, they can change the trajectory of our life, right? Had I chosen in that moment with my legs to be a victim to my situation and I'm not good enough, I don't know where I'd be right now.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But instead I chose a pathway because I was like, I am good enough. I can do this, and this is not the outcome I want.
Yeah.
And it was with rest that I was able to get to the root of like why I felt not good enough and why I needed to change that story. Because it wasn't my story. A lot of what we feel as adults are not our own stories. We didn't put that on ourselves.
Yeah.
It was somebody else's projection.
Isn't that
and when we can let go of that, we can change everything.
Yeah.
I heard this one thing of like, until the age of 9, when we get mad at our kids and we don't repair, like let's say we freak out at them because they've pushed us to our limits or anything, and we don't repair that, it is not us that they see as the villain. They don't sit there and go, oh, mom and dad suck and they're so mean and everything else like that. What actually happens is it turns around internally and it becomes a story about them. I made mom and dad angry, therefore I'm bad. I'm not good enough. They don't love me. I'm a bad boy. I'm a bad girl. I can't get love because I'm bad. These are stories that turn internally for them.
Yeah.
And I think when I learned that, that hit so hard as to why repairing after an incident, because we're human, it's going to happen, guys. Don't freak out yet. Right? Trauma is inevitable,
Yeah.
but healing is a choice.
Mm.
And so, you know, when I've made mistakes with my children, repair is always the first thing I do because I need them to understand it was me, not them.
Mm.
Right? So it doesn't become an internal story. But a lot of the internal stories we have were somebody else's story that we internalized as a problem with us. And so that's
I don't
why
think I've ever looked at it like that. And so that was a really, I mean, that just hit me hard. I was like, wow, it gave me goosebumps. That makes a lot of sense. I could feel it. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense in my life. I can
I'm
understand
gonna
now.
I'm gonna put it in a different way for anybody listening. You know, we all hear about like trauma is about what happened to you, right? Not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. But I'm gonna switch this up for you. And I'm gonna say it's not just about what happened to you, it's about what didn't happen for you.
Mm.
And that is a critical thing to understand because yeah, you know, it's, you know, a parent yelling at you and everything else like that is the trauma that happened to you. But what didn't happen for you in that moment was being seen, heard, and supported. Right? And that, like, it still hits me hard when I think about it because I think back onto some of my own childhood memories. And it's like, if I had just been able to have a parent that could step in and be like, you know, oh, I shoved a peanut butter sandwich in a VCR, you know, and I was just curious rather than getting angry at me, being like, oh, well, that was an interesting choice. Why did we decide to do that? And meeting my curiosity with understanding and
Mm.
being like,
Yeah.
showing me that why it wasn't correct would have been a better outcome than tanning my ass so much that I thought I was a bad kid.
Mm. Yeah.
Right? And you know, if my parents are listening to this, we all know this is true. We all have healed our wounds of the past.
Yeah.
They only could parent as well as they were taught,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And that's the big thing to remember. We can only do as well as we are taught,
Yeah.
but we always have a choice to break that cycle.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I can see that in you when you were just talking about your kids earlier too. I remember thinking like, man, your kids, like they are blessed to be growing up in this time where you've done so much work on yourself and the way that you talk to them. And like, yes, obviously no parent is perfect. We're never, even if we think we've read all the books and we've done all the self-help and we've done everything, there's still going to be trauma that our kids walk away with. Like there just always is going to be. There's just, yeah.
You can't not. And trauma is actually a good thing because
Right.
it teaches resiliency and how to think outside the box. It is necessity.
Yeah.
Right? It is necessity. It's all about healing it. Like trauma, again, trauma is inevitable. Healing from it is a choice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
just love that, you know, you're modeling it so well then for your kids too. For me, there's a lot of part of me that was like, man, I wish I would have learned this stuff when my kids were as little as your kids are. That would have just been amazing. But obviously, we're here now. We learn what we learn when we do. And so it's what we do with it when we learn about it and how we go
Mhm.
forward with it. That's what's important. And so, reminder to all of you out there listening as well, you know, if we think about these things, we can get stuck in this like, oh, I didn't know that. And I, you know, did things, I wish I could have done things differently. And it's like, well, you are here now. So just take what you can from this information that we're giving and go be better yourself. And then as you heal, this is the beautiful thing though, is as we heal, it just ripples. So it will ripple from generations past, and then it will also ripple generations forward, and everybody around you will feel the effects as well. So healing is so important. If you are the only one in your family and you're like, ah, oh, it's only me, and I feel like this is an uphill battle, like that's okay. Heal yourself and just watch the ripples. Like it will just ripple. So, yeah.
And to piggyback off that, like sometimes those ripples, I think we imagine like those around us healing. Sometimes that ripple looks like toxic relationships falling away.
Mm-hmm.
and that can feel really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that as you heal, you elevate yourself, and those who are ready will come with, and those who are not will stay where they are.
Yep.
It is your choice to keep moving forward.
Yes.
And so, like the ripple effect is legit, but it's not always the positive imagery
Yeah.
that we see online. And sometimes it can be really hard.
Mm-hmm.
I had to have some really hard parental discussions. I've had to set in some pretty hard boundaries with old friends, things like that. Like, I can honestly say that there's probably a handful of friends that I still have brought along on this journey with me. And it doesn't mean I don't love those who have stayed where they're at, but it's not where I'm meant to go,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because healing journeys can be very lonely sometimes when you're on them, but remembering that although you're on your pathway, if you look off to the sides, there's other people on their healing pathways. You can be like, hey, girl, hey, right? That's how you and I met,
Yep.
is on this whole journey. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think some of my closest friends don't even live anywhere near me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why the power of sisterhood, the power of being in containers,
Mm.
and the accountability that comes with that. Like just immersing yourself around other people who are doing the work, the healing work is so powerful because we create these connections together. We can be there for each other. Like our Facebook Messenger chat is just such a beautiful place to go to when we're like, gosh, I am just struggling. Is anybody? And between, I think there's like, what is there, 12 or 14 of us on there or something like
Yeah,
that?
something like
Like,
that.
there's always somebody that's around that can, pop in and share. But it's really important, I think, to harness those relationships for your growth because like you said, it can be lonely if you're doing it, especially if the people around you aren't understanding what you're doing and you feel like you've got no one to talk to. Like finding people and getting in community so that you can share and have these experiences together because they can be so beautiful as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've leaned on that group multiple times when things went sideways. And we're talking guys listening, this entire group is spread worldwide, like not even countrywide, world freaking wide. We got people in Costa Rica and maybe Nicaragua. We got people everywhere.
Yeah.
But
There's Scotland. I think
in
Scotland.
Scotland, it's honestly so worldwide, it's ridiculous. But when my world has had moments that it feels like it's too much for me, having that community, that sisterhood to lean on has been everything,
Yeah.
right? So remembering that although in your physical presence you might feel alone, you are never alone.
Mhm.
There are other people who get it, who are on similar journeys. Find those people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because getting in those containers can be life altering. Like I've never really had a lot of female friends
Mhm.
until I went on this healing journey because my sister wounds were so deep. I didn't trust women. Women didn't trust me. Plus, being an MMA fighter, it
Yeah.
just already segregated me. But it's interesting because through this sisterhood, it's all been healing step by step, moment by moment, and now some of my closest friends are female, so it's unreal for me to even think of.
Yeah.
No.
So, what does life look like now? You talked about still doing a little bit of MMA after your knees, but so is that
Mhm.
still something that's in your life, or like what does life look like now?
Not actively training because when I decided to have my first baby, the doctor said that, being in that high cortisol level, testosterone was too high. And I didn't know if I could have babies anyways. So given the fact that my husband and I met so late in life, we were like, hey, well, if we're gonna have babies, we kind of gotta get on it like now. And we thought it would take years, and it didn't. But I did have to take a step back. So when I was 33 was my final competitive year. I did 55 competitions in total, ranging from MMA to jiu-jitsu to Muay Thai. And I walked away with 55 golds, 2 silvers.
Wow.
And so that was kind of my retirement year. And then I walked away from teaching and everything else like that to fully dive into being a paramedic and trying to have babies. And then that all kind of went. And then I just decided that, you know, my body changed so much and we don't talk about it a lot. Like the bounce back is not a fucking thing. Sorry if I'm not allowed to swear on here. It's not a thing. And so for me, it was again, I had to go through another awakening, another athletic depression, but a different style, because instead of it being like I was physically broken, like my body changed so much that trying to get back into it was really hard. And so I've been on my own journey of like inviting it back into my life, but in this new postpartum body that feels different, weighs different, moves different. It's not the same body because I am not the same person. Having children changes you on a fundamental level, and I don't think it's talked about enough, And so this is what we're going to kind of go through in the Mindful Strikes program, is like not just how to be a kickboxer and do Muay Thai. Like, we'll go through all the fun basics of like how to wrap your hands, how to punch properly, how to pivot properly, all that stuff. But it's going to be like a lot of mindful techniques, the breath work, the mindfulness in like where you're landing those punches and what they mean, right? And really diving deep into releasing those inner limiting beliefs that we have through this movement, because it has, as much as it was a band-aid back then, it saves my life now, in that when my kids trigger me, because they will, I have something I can lean back on to release the energy that is not their fault. It's not their fault. It's something in me has been triggered that needs to be let out. And so I let it out in a constructive way. And then I look at it with neutrality and go, okay, how can we work through this? What does this mean on a deeper level? Right. And so it is something that I'm still doing. It just looks a lot different. Right. So I'm not in the gym 18 hours a day practically. I don't identify as an MMA fighter anymore. I just identify as a Reclamation Warrior, and that means fighting, but like in a different manner, right? So that's how everything's shifted now. But yes, it is still very much a prevalent piece of my life. My garage has heavy bags, kick shields, hand wraps, gloves, you name it, it's all in there. So
I love that. Do you think you're gonna get your kids into it?
Oh yes, my youngest is, or no, my oldest is Jace. He's in Taekwondo right now. And so I started with Taekwondo. For any parents out there going, oh, which martial arts do I put my kid in? How I do it is Taekwondo makes really good discipline, really simple for kids to follow. When he has the discipline aspect down pat, then we will move to jiu-jitsu, because all fights end on the ground, especially anybody listening with girls. And I hate to say this, but it's a fact we need to stop ignoring. Girls need to know how to fight. And especially a ground game, because all fights and all assaults happen on the ground. So to be able to, I can flip a 250-pound man without even trying, because of the techniques I know. No man can sit on top of me and pin me down, because I know how to get him off of me fast, furious, and away. Right? So going from Taekwondo for discipline to Jiu-Jitsu for ground game, and then Muay Thai, which the reason I don't start with Muay Thai, and you can trade out Taekwondo for karate. We just don't have a karate gym here. It would have been my preference. But the reason I don't start with the Muay Thai is because Muay Thai is a very dangerous sport for a kid who doesn't understand their emotions and discipline. And that can actually turn very negative very quickly. I've seen it happen too many times. Egos get in the way, and now all of a sudden I know how to kick you across the face, and it's a whole thing, right? So always discipline first, ground game second, then going into fisticuffs, as I call it. Yeah, so both of them will be in it. It's a non-negotiable in our household. We said whether we had boys or girls, it didn't matter. Even if they hate it, it's like swimming lessons. It is a life-saving technique that is a non-negotiable in our house. So you don't have to do it full-time like we did, but you will be doing it until you understand the basics. Because number one, the discipline, And number two, it's a life-saving technique. My son can get out of an adult male's grasp. If you grab him by the wrist, he can get out of it within seconds.
Mm.
Right? These are techniques that, like, although we don't want to acknowledge because we like to put our heads in the sand, they are life-saving. It's like learning to swim so that if your kid's ever near water, they don't drown.
Right.
It's the same thing. We don't expect them to, but accidents happen. The same way with martial arts. It's a non-negotiable because if there's ever a situation, I want to know that my kids know what to do.
Yeah, that's something I wish that I would have done. I wish I would have put my kids in it too, because I do think I mean, I've done a self-defense class here or there, but
Mm-hmm.
to really to do it more often though, to get it ingrained in yourself, I think taking a class here or there, like especially if something happens in a split second, like are you going to remember that one class that you took that one time,
No, you're going to panic and shut down and go into
Right.
freeze mode, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is so I do pack for the pack at my school here. I do quarterly self-defense classes, right? To support my community as well as keep my foot in the door for martial arts, but also to teach the kids the things that they need to teach. And it's a lot of like repetition. I don't want to learn 1,000 kicks one time.
Right.
I want to learn one kick 1,000 times. Because even now, I've been out of martial arts full time for 7 years. Yeah. And I can still, if somebody sneaks up behind me, it's like an instant reaction. Like your body does not forget how to move that way. Yeah. I might regret it days later as my old body goes, oh God, that hurt. But it's a natural reaction. And so like to repeat it over and over again is vital. Because you won't remember in the heat of the moment. Yeah. Absolutely. And so, yeah, it's a non-negotiable in our household. I'm like, again, they don't have to go every day. Yeah. And they don't have to do it full time and they don't have to compete. Like there's no pressure in that way, but you will go to learn the basics the same way you will learn how to doggy paddle and keep your head above water and how to be safe in the water. Like it's the same in our household. Yeah.
I love that.
It saved my life. Jess, like it literally, when it was before I lost my lung, so I was 21. I was
we didn't get into that even.
Yeah, we didn't even get into that. But I was 21. I was going to Douglas College in New Westminster, Canada, and they had a rash of like women being attacked and attempted abductions and things like that, and I thought nothing of it, didn't think anything of it. I was leaving my night class, walking to the SkyTrain to go back home, which was only one stop away. So, thinking nothing, like I'm safe, I'm in my neighborhood. And as I'm walking past the alleyway, I all of a sudden feel somebody grab my ponytail and pull me back. I can tell you right now, it must have lasted only 30 seconds. It felt like an hour, right? But everything moved so slowly. Because as my head went back, the first thing I did, because of all my training, was put my hand over my mouth because I knew something was coming this way. And that's my first thing. You want to keep your airways protected, right? And so in that moment, like I had 2 men attack me and try and toss me into a van. And if I didn't know what I know, where would I be right now? Whew. I have no idea. Yeah. And I don't want to know. No. I don't want that outcome. No. And yeah, and then, I mean, at the end of the day, all I did was do damage and run as fast as I could to the police station. That was all I did. Because I was like, I'm not staying to fight. I could fight. Yeah. But it's 2 versus 1. That's a stupid move. So I got out and I ran. Wow. Right? Didn't stop at random strangers on the street. I ran to safety. Because, you never know. Yeah. So yeah, it was one of those things where I'm like, that's what I always say is like, had I not known what I know, what would have happened? Yeah. Because you never think it's going to happen to you. Right. Until it does. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. I've also drowned. I understand the significance of learning to swim. Like mine was a kayaking accident, but it was an accident nonetheless. You never think these things are going to happen. Right. So this is why it's a non-negotiable in our household. Yeah. Because it's always the what ifs. And like some people think it's a little excessive. I say I'd rather be excessive than not have the tools.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Always.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
back up a little bit. Now you talked about not having a lung. Do you say you don't have a part of a
Yeah,
lung?
I only have one lung.
I do think I
So
remember this, but yeah.
21 was a really big year for me. So not only did I almost have an attempted abduction, I had gone off all of my medications for bipolar. And I was doing that whole initiation into my journey of like being a bipolar off meds.
Yeah.
And then I had because when I was 17 and I had that drowning incident and I had water lake water that had gotten into my lung, it had caused an infection that I was unaware of. And so I ended up with walking pneumonia, and the reason it's called walking pneumonia is like you literally your lung is dying and you have no idea.
Wow.
You have no idea. I
Mhm.
had this little like I thought it
Mhm.
was allergies. I'm an asthmatic. Of course I'd have a little cough.
Yeah.
And then it was on my 21st birthday, walking up the stairs at school, and all of a sudden it felt like somebody had stabbed me in my lung, and I collapsed, and I don't remember much after that.
Wow.
Um, I remember hearing conversations, which must have been when I was out of it in the hospital. But I remember the conversations about how the amount of medication they had me on was wearing my heart out. They didn't know if it was going to be my heart or my lung that was going to give out first. Um, yeah, and like that all of this is going to be released in a book that I like a chapter that
Mhm.
I'm writing in a book called She Defies.
Ooh.
So look out for that because that's going to go into detail of how that all happened. But basically, yeah, what happened was that the lung just it was so damaged that it couldn't be fixed. So
Wow.
yeah,
I
I
guess I
was
just
like,
never, I'm a nurse, and I don't think that I guess I have heard of somebody that didn't, but she just had like partial lung removal.
yeah,
So, whew.
yeah. So like it's so we call it my nubbin.
Yeah.
So like if you look on my X-ray, I have this little shriveled up side. It's really sad. But basically, it's not been removed. It just had so much damage done, so much scar tissue, it can't actually move. Like it like all the alveoli, all the bronchi, it has so much scar tissue. It's essentially just this shriveled little raisin
Wow.
sitting there, right?
That's
Now it's never gone necro. I've never had to have it removed, which
yeah.
was a blessing all on its own. Um, but like I still have some usage on that side, like 20%,
Okay.
but it's negligible, right? And so, yeah, it was a weird time in my life. I
And you
had to
said your
learn.
liver almost failed too. So it's like your liver, your lung, you're like,
Oh,
wow.
and I think that all of this tied in together,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
with my liver getting overrun between asthma medication, bipolar medication, everything that was happening, like it was too much. My body was just like, I can't do this. It's too much. And like the walking pneumonia was essentially, I was so sick for years after that drowning. Like I was always had a cold, always had something. I
Mm,
had no idea. My doctors had no idea. Like it was such a weird illness.
yeah.
And like, I don't know. It's people ask me in-depth questions that I can't answer. I have no idea. I don't, even as a paramedic, I'm like, I have no idea how I survived. I have no idea how this happened. I have no idea. Like, I'm just, my doctor calls me the 1%. She's like, if there's a 1% chance of something, it is you 1,000%. And I'm like, oh, yay me, I'm special. Right?
Yeah.
But, even my doctor is always amazed at the things that happen. My body just doesn't operate like normal. So
Mhm. Yeah.
I always joke that I'm an alien somehow. So yeah.
Oh, yes. Gosh, I feel like we could talk and just go on and on and on. But I
Yes.
also feel like for the sake of podcasting time, that
Yes.
we'll probably try to wrap it up here. But yeah, so would there be anything that you want to share, any part of your story, anything that you want to leave the viewers, the audience with, before we wrap it up here today? I know we kind of went all over the place, so
Yeah, we did. And that's the beauty of
yes,
these intuitive
yes.
talks. They go and it means that somebody in here
Mhm.
in whatever space and time was meant to hear what was said.
Yep.
I firmly believe that. At the end of the day, understanding that you're always going to be the villain in somebody's story, but you can always create yourself to be the hero in your own. It just takes a decision. Right? You are powerful. You are unique. There is a reason that, like, we are literally like snowflakes. Even identical twins aren't 100% the same. Right?
Yep.
Because what makes us different is the soul that inhabits our body. And your soul is on a mission. You are here to experience every human emotion possible. Do not let it drown you. Do not let it keep you stuck. View it from neutrality and grow from it.
Yeah.
Because if I could live in victimhood for so many things that have happened in my life, but that wasn't why I learned those lessons.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the big thing, is understanding that this human experience is exactly that. It's an experience. And it's going to have good moments, and it's going to have shitty moments, and it's going to have neutral moments, but they are all meant to happen. And it is beautiful and expansive.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. That was really good. So if there's anybody here listening that loved the sound of your program that you were doing this with your kickboxing and everything, what'd you call it? The strike? Something.
Mindful strikes.
Mindful strikes. So
yeah, or
that
if
in person or online?
That one's online.
Okay.
And if there's people out there that also are experiencing that like really triggered state, there's the Release and Reclaim, which is a 6-week program on how to move rage and silent rage into growth and expansion. So yeah, that one's releasing in 2025 January. So it's really exciting. I'm just building it out now, and it's all the stuff that I did when rage was my only emotion, right? Yeah. And because we don't talk about that, because in society we're not allowed to be mad about things.
Even anger. I feel like anger is something that we don't allow, or we don't talk about, or
it's ugly. It's always portrayed as ugly. But you know what? Beneath rage and anger is sadness, a longing. And that's what you can't get to until you move the rage.
So good. Yeah.
It's going to be so good. So good.
Well, I'll put your website, because will they be able to find all your info about these programs?
Yeah, they can join a wait list for all of that stuff, or they can email me if they have specific questions, and we can go from there.
Yeah, well, I'll put all your info in the show notes here. Thank you so much for being here today. I really, really loved this conversation. So, all right, until next time. Oh, thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you loved listening as much as I loved recording. Each and every conversation that I have here on this podcast just lights my soul on fire. I love having conversations where we explore and challenge our ways of thinking. So if you've resonated with anything here and you're looking for more, please connect with me on Facebook in my Soul Deep community group, which is free. I'm also offering all my listeners a free month in my Soul Deep Connection membership. I have poured my heart and soul into this membership, bringing you resources to help you grow into the best and truest version of yourself. I've used my knowledge and experience as a nurse, combined with my knowledge and experience as a coach, breathwork facilitator, and somatic embodiment guide. This library consists of breathwork, kriyas, and other resources and modalities that will help you learn about and give you the healing tools to live the life you've been dreaming about, and to help you find your true passion and zest for life again. This library of resources is vital for everyday maintenance. And on top of the library of resources, there are live monthly calls, ranging from breathwork, kundalini, full moon or new moon circles, as well as guest speakers on a variety of different topics, from decluttering to marketing to sisterhood and all things healing and wellness. So make sure you join today to get you back on track to living that thriving life that you are longing for. Remember, the first month is free, and my hope is that you find so much value that staying is an absolute no-brainer. It really is everything that I was looking for as I started my journey, and so much more. I truly hope to see you inside my community. And if you haven't yet, please follow me here and on social. Like and subscribe, and make sure to share your favorite episode with your friends and community. And when you do, make sure to tag me in that post. If you tag me, you'll be entered into a drawing for that month where you can win a free one-to-one session, breathwork or coaching session with me. All the links will be in the show notes here below. Until next time, Soul Deep fam, and in the words of my dear friend Mary Lacey Banks, I'm holding you so tight in a thought hug.